Om Shivaya, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, our 5 p.m. presentation, Hawaii time. Thank you for joining us. The webinar is in two parts. The first is the pub desk. You can see the title there on your screen, Claiming Your Omnipresence. That's the pub desk for the January, February, March, or the current issue of Hinduism Today. After we complete that, we'll return to Path to Shiva. This is the fourth time, so we're calling it part 4. Lessons 1 through 26 with the questions included, questions and answers. So that's our plan for today. Claiming your omnipresence. How to separate your awareness from what you are aware of and enjoy a part of your mind that is always peaceful and all-pervasive. Yes.
Pull the microphone a little bit towards the middle.
Okay, a little toward the middle.
Slightly closer.
Okay, just adjusting the mic. And this publisher's desk is based on an insight I shared with some devotees on how the soul's omnipresence can be compared to our modern day computer internet. So I think you'll find that interesting. Omnipresence is defined as the state of being present everywhere at the same time. In a religious context, omnipresence is generally thought of as an attribute unique to God. God is present everywhere, whereas man is only present in the location of his physical body. Hindu thought differs from this perspective. Not only is God omnipresent, he has graciously shared that attribute with us. Omnipresence is found at the core of our soul. We can compare this to the internet, which was created by the U.S. Department of Defense for their use, but was ultimately given to the world for everyone to freely use. I have coined a word for the omnipresent network that is accessed by experiencing the core of the soul. I call it the internet. So we have the internet and the internet, which have certain similarities, as we'll see in a few slides. Realized beings have shared their experience of the internet. My guru's guru, Yogaswami of Jaffna, Sri Lanka, expressed it in this way. Bliss, bliss, bliss. I am here, I am there, I am everywhere. To make sure his devotees didn't think that this was an attainment unique to him, he would also state, I am everywhere, you are everywhere, but you don't believe it. That's the first challenge in this exercise, is to actually believe that you're already omnipresent. Omnipresence is a quality of the core of your soul. The challenge is you're not able to experience the core of your soul, so you're not able to experience the omnipresence that already is part of you. That's how we look at it. He also made seemingly outlandish statements such as, now I am sitting here, I am in England also, I am also in America. Basically, wherever he had a close devotee, his mind was there with the devotee. Not only was Yogaswami able to experience the internet, he was able to utilize it to accomplish tasks at a distance. We can give initiation by thought to people in Singapore while remaining here in Sri Lanka. This interior network has a parallel to the external internet, with which we remotely access digital devices that are thousands of miles away from our computer. So what the internet is able to do with computers and a computer network, Yogaswami was able to do with people using the internet. In Hindu philosophy, the Sanskrit term most commonly used for the internet of omnipresence is Satchitananda. Our online lexicon defines this as Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, a synonym for Parashakti, Lord Shiva's divine mind, and simultaneously the pure superconscious mind of each individual soul. Satchitananda is perfect love and omniscience, omnipotent consciousness, the fountainhead of all existence, yet containing and permeating all existence. Also called pure consciousness, pure form, substratum of existence, and more, one of the goals of the meditator or yogi is to experience the natural state of the mind, Satchitananda, holding back the vrittis through yogic practices. Paramaguru Yogaswami had a terse way of stating this. Sat, Chit, Ananda. That is one thing. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is you are. Chit is omnipresence. Prakasha, light is from the sun, all-knowing. Ananda is bliss. They are three, but they are one. That is your nature. In Hinduism, it is not enough to simply state that omnipresence resides at the core of our soul. This truth ultimately must be experienced by each of us. We can move forward toward experiencing omnipresence using a series of progressive practices. That's an important phrase, progressive practices. In other words, when we talk about experience omniscience, Satchitananda, someone might be motivated to sit down in a quiet place and try and experience it right away. Well, that's why we have said we need to experience it through progressive practices. It's similar to the Bharatanatyam dancer, who is very expert, who's accomplished an Arangetram. How did he or she get there? Through progressive practices. The teacher started with very simple, then a little harder, then more difficult, and then more difficult yet. And finally, the dancer was able to do the most advanced steps, which is similar to experiencing your omnipresence. So we need a progressive path. We need to know, what can I do? What are the progressive practices to actually achieve this state? So we just talk about a few here. We don't list every single one. The first step is to understand and then identify ourselves as awareness rather than what we are aware of. That's a familiar one, but a crucial one. A clear statement of this idea is found in the first 4 verses of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Now, the exposition of yoga. Yoga is the restraint of mental activities. Then awareness abides in its essential nature. At other times, awareness takes on the form of the mental activities. Awareness is the soul's ability to sense, see, or know, and to be conscious of this knowing. In the Yoga Sutras, awareness is termed Drashta, Drik, Chit, and Chit Shakti. The state referred to in verse 3, then awareness abides in its essential nature, is the result of awareness disuniting with the mental activities. And remaining temporarily aware only of itself until thoughts again arise. Some of you will remember that Gurudeva says that it's easy to experience kaif, or awareness aware of itself. Anyone can do it, but the challenge is to sustain it. Anyone can experience kaif for a few seconds, but then the vrittis, the thought process, turns back on, and there's nothing the person can do to turn it off. So the experience was very short-lived. Exercise 1, identifying yourself as awareness. Mentally repeat the question, who am I, for 1 minute while being aware that you are repeating it. So we can practice that way. It won't take a full minute. Just mentally repeat the question, who am I? And at the same time, be aware that you are repeating it. During the next minute, cease the repetition and simply be aware of what was aware of repeating it. Very good. That's the basic practice. This clarifies it. An example may be helpful. I hold up a piece of paper and I say, I see the paper. You've heard this before, many of you. That makes sense, right? I see the paper in my hand. If I say I am the paper, how many would agree? No one. We are trained from childhood that we are not physical objects. We perceive them. We see the paper. We smell the incense. We hear the water flowing. We are different from them. That's the way we think. But then we say, I am happy. Think about it. We identify with the happiness we experience, but we are not the paper we see. Returning to Patanjali's verses, happiness is the mental activity that awareness has taken the form of. The goal is to distinguish ourselves from what is mental in the same way we distinguish ourselves from what is physical. We don't want to think, I am happy. We want to think I, awareness, am experiencing the emotion called happiness. But I am not happiness. I am the experiencer of happiness. It's also technically incorrect to say my awareness. You need to say I as awareness. Because if you say my awareness, then awareness is something other than you. So I as awareness, or I awareness, am experiencing. And we're experiencing an emotion. We're clearly labeling what we're experiencing. That isn't who I am, just as I am not the paper I see. Exercise number 2, moving your awareness. A good second step toward claiming our soul's omnipresence is to control the state of consciousness that you, as awareness, are currently experiencing. If you are in a slightly depressed state of mind, move awareness into a happier one. If you are in a slightly depressed state of mind, if you are jealous of an individual, move into a state of being happy for what he or she has achieved. Gurudeva taught this principle by comparing the states of consciousness and individual experiences to a large city, and awareness to the traveler through the city. He wrote, Generally, people take problems too personally by identifying closely with them. When they experience anger, they are angry. When they experience bliss, they are blissful. The mystic identifies with the experiencer instead of the experience. He sees himself as pure awareness that travels in the mind. When he is in San Francisco, he is not San Francisco. Similarly, when he is in anger, he is not anger. He says to himself, I am pure energy. I am the spiritual energy that floods through mind and body. I am not the body, the mind, or the emotions. I am not the thoughts I think or the experiences I experience. Thus he molds a new identity of himself as a free being who can travel anywhere in the mind. Such a person is always at the top of the mountain. Omnipresent consciousness has other qualities, such as being eternal and changeless. So it's always existed and it's never changed. It's always been the same. So part of us has always existed and has always been as it is right now, and will always be that way in the future. It just doesn't change. Okay, that's what I just said. Jumped ahead. Charming story told by a former Canadian ambassador to Sri Lanka illustrates this idea. My wife and I brought our 3 children to see Yoga Swami. Turning to the children, he asked each of them, how old are you? Our daughter said 9, and the boys 11 and 13. To each in turn, Yoga Swami replied solemnly, I am the same age as you. When the children protested that he couldn't be 3 different ages at once, and that he must be much older than their grandfather, Yoga Swami just laughed and winked at us to see if we understood. At the time, we took it as his joke with the children, but slowly we came to see that he meant something profound, which was for us to decipher. Now I think this was his way of saying indirectly that although the body may be of very different ages on its way from birth to death, something just as real as the body, and for which the body is only a vehicle, always was and always will be. In that sense, we are in essence all the same age. Here are 3 more exercises in connecting with your inherent omnipresence. Give them a try. Exercise 1. When you come home from visiting a temple, imagine you are still in the temple in front of the deity. And feel the vibration of the distant temple within you. This works if you've gone to the temple many times and you feel an affinity for the temple. It's not something that would necessarily be able to be done if you just went to a temple once or twice, or if you go to a temple that you don't feel any affinity with. But it does work. So you can go to the temple without leaving your home, just in your mind. Number 2, when you walk down the street, imagine that you are in 2 places, where you are standing and also ahead of your body at the end of the block. That's a way of making your walk more interesting. Because you're everywhere, you're already where you're going. And number 3, when walking, strive to go deeply enough within to see that you, as awareness, are actually standing still, not moving. Said another way, if you ever are moving, but you have the sense that you're standing still, then that means you're experiencing your omnipresence. The next time you find yourself in a negative state of consciousness, move awareness out of it into the positive consciousness that you are a spiritual being whose essence is identical with God. Identifying yourself as awareness and learning to move awareness out of negative states of consciousness into positive ones brings you closer to experiencing yourself as omnipresent. So these are the first two practices given in this gradational series we could develop. And it's for pub death, so it's just giving the beginning ones. Satchitananda, the most subtle level of existence you can be aware of. So again, to comment on Yoga Swami's point, I noticed this in talking to Yoga Swami groups, which I've done a lot of over the few decades. Yoga Swami groups means the devotees who are older now and met him personally in one degree of closeness or another. And I noticed that they put him up on a pedestal and themselves down on the floor. And they ascribed all these great qualities to him with no sense these same qualities were in each of them, but they just hadn't manifested yet. So devotion is great, but we don't want to limit ourselves as to what we can experience by not seeing that in the future we can also manifest the same qualities that Yoga Swami is manifesting in the present. Gurudeva has a nice statement of a similar nature in the talk, The Clear White Light. He says, looking into the light, you may see the face of a master. He is your own potential. Though emphasizing the same thing, that eventually whatever qualities you see in the master will eventually manifest in you. Moving on to the second part of our webinar, called this Part 4 of Path to Shiva, 68 Lessons. Part 4, because this is the fourth webinar in which we've covered them. We'll go through lessons, checking the time here, 21 through 26. Go through the lesson, and then we'll go through the questions and answers. If a point is really important, I'll comment on it. And in the questions and answers, if there's something in particular that question is getting at that may not be obvious, I'll mention it. That's our approach. We're starting with lesson 21. What are the three worlds? There are three worlds of existence. You've probably also heard that there's 7 worlds of existence. Well, which one is right? Well, the worlds are such that you can compare them to a piece of pie. How many pieces of pie are in a pie? However many you choose to cut it into, right? You could cut it into 3, you could cut it into 5, into 7. Easier, of course, if it's even numbered when it comes to a pie. Likewise, we can divide the inner worlds in different ways. The major divisions are 3, and when you incorporate certain minor divisions, you end up with 7. So this text is just looking at 3, and the reason I mention that is so you don't get confused. If someone asks, well, aren't there 7 worlds? You say, well, yes, that's a more detailed way of breaking it down. But it's describing the same thing. It's not different. First world is the physical universe, the gross plane called Bhuloka. So that we're getting 3 terms for each one. In this case, physical universe, gross plane, Bhuloka. 3 different terms. You'll see them consistent in each one. This is the world we see with our eyes and touch with our hands. It is the material world where we have our experiences, create karma, and fulfill the desires and duties of life in a physical body. The second world is the subtle or astral plane, the in-between realm called Antarloka. This world exists within the physical plane as our thoughts and feelings are part of that inner world. We are functioning in the astral world even while we are awake. Important point. So right now, we're all functioning in the Antarloka because we're thinking. Our thoughts are in the Antarloka and create forms in the Antarloka, which someone who can see into the Antarloka could see the forms that our thoughts are forming there right now. But more obviously, during sleep, we leave our physical body and are awake and are aware in that inner world fully. Besides dreaming, we may also attend inner plane classes held by our Satguru. The Antarloka has many levels, spanning the spectrum of consciousness from the hellish Naraka regions, where the Asuras, demonic beings, dwell, to the highest region of the Devaloka, where the Devas, or angels, live. When our physical body dies, we live fully in the Antarloka in our subtle body. The third world is the causal plane, the world of light and blessedness called Shiva Loka. This highest plane is the home of God Shiva and of the gods who assist him, such as Lord Ganesha and Lord Murugan. It is also the home of highly advanced souls who exist in their brilliant soul form. We experience the Shiva Loka when we see the inner light or have a flash of intuition. We can worship God and the gods anywhere, but the temple is the best place because it is built as a special sacred place where the three worlds meet as one. When we are awake, we normally don't see or sense the inner worlds. The temple enables us to feel the presence of God, gods, and devas, just as night vision goggles allow us to see in the dark. In our form of worship called puja, we chant, burn incense, ring bells, and offer lights and flowers. This ritual brings us close to God and the great beings of our faith. To understand the agamic temple, the concept of the three worlds is crucial, because the temple only makes sense when we can explain that, well, we have beings in the Shiva Loka and in the Antarloka, as well as in the physical world, that are working together when we have puja. Gurudeva has a statement on that. Religion is the working together of the three worlds, and this takes place most perfectly in the confines of the temple. So the beings in our religion aren't just the ones on the earth, they're the ones in the Antarloka and the ones in the Shiva Loka that work together. And this concept of the three worlds helps explain all of that. Moving on to the questions and answers. First one here, correct Sanskrit name for the world is just making sure the student learns the Sanskrit terms. So, of course, it's Bhuloka, Antarloka, and Shiva Loka. The answers. Then we get the English terms, as I mentioned. We're learning both Sanskrit and English terms. So first world, gross plane, second world, subtle or astral plane, third world, causal plane. Two sets of terms for the three worlds. Then we're learning what is in which part of the Antarloka. We're dividing it into two, Devaloka and Naraka Loka. So the hellish regions are Naraka, highest region, Deva. Suras, demonic beings, dwell in Naraka, and the Devas, angelic beings, dwell in the Devaloka. Pretty simple. Third world, there's an incorrect answer. It's just making sure someone's paying attention. It's B is incorrect because, of course, Lord Ganesha is in the third world. We experience Antarloka when we see the inner light or have a flash of intuition. May sound true, but of course it's the Shiva Loka that we're experiencing when we see the inner light or have a flash of intuition. So the answer is false. Moving on to lesson 22, which is next. Just close some slides here. What is the nature of our soul? Our soul is immortal. Our soul is an immortal spiritual being. The essence of the soul is pure consciousness and absolute reality. The essence is perfect, eternal, and was never created. Visualize it as a light bulb covered by 5 layers of colored fabrics. These are our 5 bodies or sheaths. The physical body is our outer body of flesh and bones, which we need to function in this earthly world. So we just use the English here because the Sanskrit, to try and learn 5 Sanskrit terms, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, etc., would be a little too much. So we're just keeping the English word. The physical body is our outer body. So that's the first one, physical. Inside it is the pranic body, the sheath of energy or prana that flows through the physical body. Then we have the subtle or astral body. It is the sheath of ordinary thoughts, desires, and emotions. Next is the mental or intellectual layer. It functions on the higher mental plane. Finally, we have the body of the soul. This is the body that evolves from birth to birth, that reincarnates into new outer sheaths and does not die when the physical body perishes. And we have Gurudeva's description, which is really a nice touch. The body of the soul actually looks like a plastic body filled with light. You have seen mannequins with arms, legs, torso, and head made completely out of transparent, neon-like plastic. If you were to put a light in such a mannequin, it would glow. That is what your soul body, your psyche, looks like. "21 chakras. This is a little different than the 3 worlds or the 7 worlds. Sometimes we say there's 7 chakras, sometimes we say there's 14, sometimes we say there's 21. We rarely say there's 21, but 21 is the complete group. And this explains where they are, and then I'll comment on why we normally don't include the higher 7. The 7 lower chakras, those of fear, anger, and the other lower instinctive impulses, are located in the legs. The 7 middle chakras are along the spine, and the highest 7, accessible only after self-realization, are above the head. So you can see, because they're only accessible after self-realization, there's no need to say a lot about them or learn a lot about them, but they're up there, above the head. So normally, therefore, we say there's 7, or we say there's 14, depending on what we're trying to emphasize. If we say there's 7, it's always the middle we're referring to, and not the lower. And when it comes to the chakras, Gurudeva takes the most conservative point of view. Some teachers are trying to get you to stimulate the Kundalini to awaken the higher chakras. Gurudeva says, wait a minute here. Let's try something else first. Let's close off the lower ones. So, not as exciting. It doesn't make for a great lecture, but we're closing off fear, anger, and the other lower instinctive impulses. We don't want to experience them. And of course, one of the ways we do that is through worshiping Lord Ganesha. It helps stabilize us in the Muladhara chakra so we don't go down into fear or into anger or jealousy and all that which is below that. So staying out of the lower chakras is Gurudeva's emphasis, and he gives us a number of tools, particularly the worship of Lord Ganesha, to accomplish that. We also have an aura radiating within and around us, whose colors change according to our thoughts and emotions. Once physical births have ceased, this soul body still continues to evolve in the heavenly worlds. We are not the physical body, mind, or emotions. We are the eternal soul, Atman, consisting of the radiant soul body in its essence, pure consciousness, and absolute reality. This is one of the points in Hindu philosophy, of which there are a number of opinions, and those who know the answer, unfortunately, aren't on earth anymore. So therefore, they can't tell us what they actually experienced. They can only tell us what they theorized it would be before they achieved moksha. One of the common other concepts is, well, if you achieve moksha, you just merge with God at that very moment. But that's not our concept, nor the concept of lots of other schools. Simple way of looking at our concept is, we're going to school, and our school is broken into 3 different parts. Each country has different names for the schools, but in the U.S., you have primary school, secondary school, and university. 3 schools located in different places because they don't want to mix the age groups. Well, the first school we graduate from is the physical universe. But then there's things to learn in the Antarloka. So we have to have accomplishments in the Antarloka. Then we graduate from the school of the Antarloka. And then we move on to the Shiva Loka. There's things to learn there. Once we learn that, we have final graduation, which is merger with Shiva. Shiva and you are one, and you don't exist individually anymore. So 3 schools, that's a nice way of looking at what happens. And moksha is just graduating from the first one. Essence of the soul, this is pointing out that there's 2 concepts that are in the essence of the soul, pure consciousness and absolute reality, not just one. Oh, this is making sure we can describe each of the bodies. Unfortunately, it's on 2 slides. We'll do the best we can. Of ordinary thoughts, desires, and emotions. So thoughts, desires, and emotions, that's the subtle or astral body. Of flesh and bones, that's the physical body. That functions on a higher mental plane, that mental gives it away, the mental body. Of energy, pranic body is the body that evolves from birth to birth, body of the soul, of course. Soul body is neither male nor female and never dies. True. Oh, this is important and can be made logical by saying, well, an individual can reincarnate as either a man or a woman, and does so not alternately man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, but it does alternate in between different lives. You're not always a man or always a woman. So the soul is neither male nor female. If the soul is neither male nor female, certainly the deities have to be neither male nor female, because they're more advanced than the soul. So that's a way of explaining that though the deities are depicted as male and female, they're really not, just like we are not male and female when it comes to being a soul. So that's a useful one. Okay, the chakras 7 lower. This is kind of obvious. The legs, middle, spine, and the highest above the head. Once physical births have ceased, the soul body no longer continues to evolve. So we went through that one in detail, and the answer is, according to Our philosophy, false. That's only the first graduation out of 3. Next, we have lesson 23. Why are we not all knowing like Shiva? A very good question. Shiva is perfection itself. Each soul shares his perfection inwardly, but outwardly is immature. Think of Shiva as a mighty oak tree and the soul as an acorn that will one day become a mighty tree itself. Lord Shiva's veiling grace, Tirodhana Shakti, veils the soul's all-knowingness. This is a loving power that limits and protects us so that we may learn and mature. This grace is in 3 parts. First, Anava makes us forget that we are unlimited. Anava is that which makes the soul finite and separate from God Shiva. Under its power, we completely evolved. Under its power, we are completely involved in the joys and sorrows of our particular life, not aware that we are a divine soul, one with God. Second, Maya, the world, offers us vast opportunities for experience. This gift from Shiva is our playground of experience. Third, karma, the law of cause and effect, is our instructor in the play of life. Together, Anava, karma, and Maya are known as pasha, meaning tether or rope. An ancient analogy of a cowherd tending his cows illumines this idea. The cowherd is God Shiva, called Patti. The cows represent souls, Pashu. And the tether or rope with which Patti leads the cows is Pasha. The cowherd restrains and protects the cows with the rope, just as Shiva guides and protects souls with Anava, karma, and Maya. Through many lifetimes, under the harnessing power of these 3, our soul grows to maturity, and the 3 malas begin to lose their grip. So it's a slow process. This nicely conveys that idea. And what I found is, maybe it's part of modern life, is that when people become more serious about the spiritual path, they want to rush. I need to realize God in this life. Someone tells me who's 60 years old. No, that's not the right idea. We want to make as much progress as we can in each life, according to our karma and dharma. We don't want to rush. We want to enjoy life. And it generally will take more than the balance of this life to accomplish that. When the time is ripe, Shiva grants his revealing grace, Anugraha Shakti. When finally we yearn to know Shiva, the Satguru appears in our life and gives us disciplines to help us evolve further. Finally, through his grace, the soul realizes its true identity with Shiva. Tirumanduram explains, when the soul attains self-knowledge, then it becomes one with Shiva. The malas perish, birth cycle ends, and the lustrous light of wisdom dawns. Shiva is perfection itself. Each soul shares his perfection outwardly, but inwardly is immature. Of course, that's backwards, so it's false. This is just to match the Sanskrit and the English. Veiling grace, of course, is Tirudana, and revealing is Anugraha. So this is to make sure someone knows that Anava, Maya, and Karma, what they are. So the world, that's Maya, making the soul finite. Anava, instructor, is Karma. You'll notice the lesson is talking about Karma as the teacher, the instructor. It's very important. We'll come back to that. So this is, you want to match up Pati Pashu Pasha with God, souls, and tether. That's easy. When finally we yearn to know Shiva, the Satguru appears in our life and gives us A, immediate realization of our true identity with Shiva. B, disciplines to help us evolve further. C, devotional songs to sing. Well, of course, the correct answer is B, disciplines to help us evolve further. And A is the common misconception, at least among adults, that you can go to a weekend seminar on Saturday, study, on Sunday you receive your initiation, and on Monday you're realized, or something close to that. Teachers are making realization seem easy to attain, but it's not. Progress toward realization is what we can attain, slow and steady progress, but realization for most people, it requires a few more lives at least. So therefore, we're going to the Satguru for disciplines, just like we go to a dance teacher to learn exercises. We start with the simple ones, more complicated, and so on, as we talked about, gradational practices. So disciplines is important. And as I mentioned, karma can be thought of as a negative thing. It's fate, it's unchangeable. Whatever I do, I can't escape this destiny. But that's missing the point. The point here is made a couple of times. Karma is the teacher. What does it teach us? It teaches us what it feels like to be on the receiving end of what we did to someone else. So if we harm someone else, then someone else will harm us. So we know how it feels to be harmed, and then hopefully we'll catch on that this is pretty unpleasant. I don't want to put other people through this, and improve our behavior. Likewise, it teaches us if we help someone and someone helps us, it makes us really feel good, and we're inspired to help people more often. It says, you say to yourself, boy, I really feel good. I need to do this more often, not never. So it teaches us both things, the positive and the negative, through helping us, through having us experience what we caused others to experience. '24. Let's take a look here. Okay, yes, we're running slightly slow. Okay. Can't give you any more long speeches. Don't finish on time. 24. Are souls and world essentially good? All souls are essentially good, for their inner nature is divine. Each soul is created by God Shiva from himself. Shiva's nature is pure love. So goodness, compassion, understanding, and joy are natural qualities of the soul. Wisdom and pure knowledge are the intrinsic nature of the soul. The world, too, is God's flawless creation. All is in perfect order and balance. Since God is everywhere and in all things, there can be no place for evil. Evil is often looked upon as a force against God. But we know that all forces are God's forces, even mean, hurtful actions. This is sometimes difficult to understand when we see the pains and problems caused by people against each other. So that's the answer. Why is there conflict, violence in the world? Because people are still learning how to get along with one another. Nothing to do with God. It has to do with people growing up. Looking deeper, we see that what is called evil has its own purpose in life. Yes, bad things do happen. Still, the wise never blame God, for they know such things are the return of our self-created karmas, tough lessons that help us learn and mature. The nature of the world is duality. It contains each thing and its opposite. Joy and sorrow, goodness and evil, love and hate. Suffering cannot be totally avoided. It is a natural part of human life that causes much spiritual growth for the soul. Knowing this, the wise accept suffering from any source, be it hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, famine, wars, disease, or personal tragedies. Suffering offers us the important realization that true happiness and freedom cannot be found in the world. For earthly joy is bound to sorrow. Having learned this, devotees seek a Satguru who teaches them to overcome suffering through understanding and acceptance. The world is the bountiful creation of a benevolent God who means for us to live positively in it, facing karma and fulfilling dharma. We must not despise or fear the world. Life is meant to be lived joyously. Questions? Qualities of the soul. Of course, B, a tendency to act in evil ways, is not a quality of the soul. So this is an important one. When bad things happen to us, it is because of the hurtful nature of some people, the return of our self-created karmas, or God. So A and C are what lots of people think. I run into it all the time. How could God do this to me? How could God allow this to happen? Or sometimes they're focusing on the people. How can these people treat us this way? We've been doing good to them, good to the world. Well, both groups are missing B. What you experience, and even what the world experiences, in terms of people relating with people, are all self-created karmas. So you're attracting it to yourself. The nature of the world is duality. And of course, the incorrect answer is C. Love and kindness are not opposites. Suffering, incorrect answer, unnecessary. A natural part of human life causes much spiritual growth. So of course, the incorrect answer is it is unnecessary. It is necessary to cause spiritual growth. We are meant to live positively in the world, facing dharma and fulfilling karma. So yes, true. $25. What about evil, hell, and sin? In the highest sense, there is no good or bad. God did not create evil as a force distinct from good. He granted to souls the divine laws of dharma and karma, along with the freedom to act as they wish in the great ocean of experience. This is God's grace, allowing us to learn and evolve. There is no eternal hell, nor is there a Satan. However, there are hellish states of mind and painful births for those who think and act wrongfully. Sin is related only to the lower instinctive intellectual nature as a transgression of dharma. Man's true nature is not sullied by sin, and no bad deed can cause the soul to be forever lost or damned. Still, wrongful actions are real and to be avoided, for they return to us as sorrow through the law of karma. Bad deeds can be atoned for with sadhana, worship, and penance. As Saivites, we do not see a sharp contrast of good and evil in the world. Instead, we understand that all people have a threefold nature: instinctive, intellectual, and spiritual. Well, this is a really important point. And it's how we can explain the presence of what people call evil, or criminals or terrorists in the world. It's because of their nature, the instinctive nature is dominant, and therefore they tend to act violently and selfishly. Whereas others who are intellectual would be different, and those who are spiritual would be very different. So man's nature is threefold. He's not just instinctive, just intellectual, or just spiritual. He has all three. And clearly, the intellect is needed to control the instinct, and then the spiritual eventually controls the intellect. That's a little beyond what this lesson says, but that's important to know. The instinctive nature is the outer, lower, or animal nature of I, mean, and mine. When it dominates, people become angry, fearful, greedy, jealous, and hurtful. The intellectual nature is the soul's mental aspect. When it rules, people can become arrogant and prone to argument and conflict. The spiritual or superconscious nature of the soul is the source of compassion, insight, modesty, peace, and understanding. The animal instincts of young souls are strong. Their intellect, which is needed to control the instincts, is yet to develop. Shows the importance of school, developing the intellect to control the instincts. When we encounter meanness and wickedness in others, we recall this threefold nature and have compassion for those in the lower instinctive states. We know they will continue to evolve as they learn from their self-created karma. This is an important point. I like to look at people and their threefold nature, compare it to the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, of course, finds out if someone is guilty or innocent and then sentences them or punishes them. And unless it's a super serious crime, they get out after a number of years. And what is the justice system hoping to accomplish? Rehabilitate them or change their behavior. It doesn't want them to do the same thing they did before. So the justice system isn't just saying this is a bad person, I'm going to punish them, or I'm going to kill them. It's saying, I want to rehabilitate them. So likewise, that's how we need to look at people that are acting in low-minded ways. We want to see them improving, coming up into the intellectual mind, coming up into the intuitive mind eventually. So we don't say they're evil, they're bad, they're different. We say they're expressing the instinctive nature without any controls over it. Let's hope they learn to control it soon. We also know there is no intrinsic evil, meaning the essence of every person is divine. God created evil as the distinct force from good. Of course, that's false. Regarding hell, incorrect answer. There's no Satan. That's true. There are hellish states of mind, a painful birth for those who think and act wrongfully. That's true. There is eternal hell. That's what's false. In Hinduism, if someone is going to the Naraka Loka after they die because they've lived a destructive life, they don't stay there forever because they have to be rehabilitated eventually. We're not a religion that believes that everyone just ends up getting punished the rest of eternity. They stay there a while, then they get reborn, and hopefully they learn something in between and act a better life. Regarding sin, check the incorrect answer. So the last one, man's true nature is sullied by sin. No, sin comes back to us through the law of karma. And we have to face the reaction. And we can soften that reaction through living a religious life. Correct name of the nature, A through C. It's one of those that goes on 2 slides, so it's hard to see it. Instinctive nature. Okay, so when it dominates, people become angry. That's instinctive. When it rules, people can become arrogant and prone to argument and conflict. That's intellectual, and source of compassion, insight, and modesty is, of course, spiritual. Last one on this one. When we encounter meanness and wickedness in others, we recall the above threefold nature and have compassion for those in the lower instinctive states. Absolutely true. Well, we're running a few minutes over. I think we'll finish in 5 minutes. But the noon session got through this next lesson. So it's going to be very confusing if we end up in different places. So we'll just go about 5 minutes more. Lesson 26. Who is Lord Ganesha? Lord Ganesha is the elephant-faced patron of art and science, the lord of obstacles and guardian of Dharma. First son of Siva, he is worshipped before any of the other gods, including Siva himself. His vahana or mount is Mushika, the mouse, symbol of this god's ability to access all places in the mind. Gurudeva taught. My place here. Wherever those devotees are, in the home, the factories, the offices, the hospitals, the marketplace. Orbiting in space or tilling the soil on the farm, Lord Ganesha is ever there. We worship him before beginning a new project, taking an exam, or making a major decision, such as where to go to college. When we feel the need for Ganesha's blessings, we attend puja to him in the temple or pray to him at our home shrine. You can get to know him as a good friend. To contact him, hold his elephant image in your mind. Look into his eyes. Ganesha's guidance will come in a subtle, indirect manner over the next several days. Watch for signs, so it's indirect. Perhaps a suggestion or even a casual comment from a teacher, parent, or friend that suddenly makes it clear what you should do. Shakti of Lord Ganesha is a gentle, soothing force. Even the subtle encounter has the power to bring us into the secure consciousness of the Muladhara chakra, the fourth center of memory where Ganesha resides. This blessing keeps us above the 7 lower chakras, home of the base emotions such as jealousy, fear, and anger. In our graphic, Ganesha is represented by the Sanskrit letter Lam, as in Lambodara. There's the Lam. Lord Shiva, the supreme god, created Lord Ganesha, Murugan, and all the other Hindu gods. They are souls like us, but of a higher evolution, destined to enjoy union with him. They are very old and mature souls, mighty beings who live in the Shiva Loka. Though commonly depicted as male or female, as we talked about before, they are actually beyond gender, as is your soul. And our last questions here. Lord Ganesha is worshipped before any of the other gods except Shiva himself. Of course, that's false. We worship him. A is false. When a new project is completed, we need to worship him before a new project is started. Number of the steps below, 1 to 4, to show the correct order for contacting Lord Ganesha. So, my recollection is Hold his elephant image in your mind, look into his eyes, speak your questions and problems into his right ear, open your eyes. The answer to your question will be received by you speaking into your right ear in a subtle, indirect manner. So it's important to emphasize B. The gods don't talk to most people. Your prayer, as it says in the text, can be answered in a subtle way and even take a few days to manifest. So you don't want to expect it to happen even the same day. As Gurudeva says, inner worlds, there's a time delay between the inner worlds and the physical world. If it needs to involve people in the physical world, it takes 72 hours. So something happens in the inner worlds, and it takes 72 hours to manifest in this one. So you don't pray the day before your exam. You pray at least 72 hours before your exam. Lord Ganesha, Murugan, and all the other Hindu gods are souls like us, but of a higher evolution destined to enjoy union with him. True. So, thank you very much. We went a little bit over there. And have a wonderful rest of the day. Om Namah Shivaya.